Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Sorry for the late start. We had to wait to be on air. I'm going to call to order this February 23rd meeting of the Minneapolis Planning Commission. My name is Alyssa Lipke-Pier, and I will be chairing the meeting in absence of the president. I am joined by Commissioners Kronzer, Gagnon, Bender, and Tucker at tonight's meeting. At this time, I'm going to ask that you turn off all pagers and cell phones and electronic devices. And if you are not in ownership of an agenda, they are available out in the hallway if you want to pick them up. Our first order of business is approval of actions from the February 9th, 2015 meeting. May I have a motion to approve those actions?
So move.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Those actions are approved. All righty. Do I also need to do committee of the whole? All right, then I'm going to move to the committee of the whole consent agenda. As Matt Brown is not here to present that, I will present that we, committee of the whole, approved land sales for the following addresses: 2732 4th Street North, 422 30th Avenue North, 2115 Bryant Avenue North, 3638 Girard Avenue North, 2600 Irving Avenue North, 3419 James Avenue North, 3110 Newton Avenue North, 2701 Oliver Avenue North, 5147 Penn Avenue North, 2658 Queen Avenue North, 4238 Thomas Avenue North, and additionally 2207 16th Avenue South, 2527 18th Avenue South, 2548 12th Avenue South, 3219 2nd Avenue South, 3500 Clinton Avenue South, 3604 18th Avenue South, and last but not least 4640 Portland Avenue. Can I get a motion to approve the committee?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that item is also approved. All right, moving on to tonight's approval of the agenda. We'll be working from the agendas that I mentioned just a few minutes ago in the hallway. I'm going to go through the agendas and sort out what items will be continued to future meetings, what items will be discussed, and which items will be put on the consent agenda. If you are here tonight to discuss an item, please let me know by raising your hand when it comes up. And then we'll know to pull it from the consent agenda. So the first item for today we'll be hearing is the De La Salle Center for Innovative Learning, item number 1 at 25 West Island Avenue. This item is recommended for approval. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Speak in opposition to this item, or opposition to the staff recommendation. All right, seeing none, that's going to be placed on the consent agenda. The second item is the Franklin Street Bakery parking, which is at 1919 10th Avenue South. Staff recommendation is to approve the rezoning. Is there anybody here to speak in opposition to this finding? One person. Okay, we'll pull that from the consent agenda. The third item is 1710 RLS at 1708 1714 West Lake Street. That's also recommended for approval on the staff agenda. Anybody here to speak in opposition to the staff recommendation? Okay, we'll put item 3 on the consent agenda. And lastly, a zoning code text amendment in regard to chapter 535. Anyone here that would like to discuss this further? All right. So we have items number 1, 2, and 4. Oh, excuse me, yes. 1, 3, and 4 to be put on the consent agenda, and item number 2 to be discussed.
I make
Yes.
a motion to amend our acceptance agenda as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second? Or any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The consent agenda has been approved. So the consent agenda. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Sorry, it's been a long day. So now we're going to open the public hearing to approve the proposed agenda, which is again items 1, 3, and 4 to be approved on consent. Item number 2 to be heard. Once again, is there anybody here to speak on any of those items? Items 1, 3, and 4. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing on those items and ask for a motion to approve the. Thank you. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. If you're here for items 1, 3, and 4, we are done with those items for the night. Now we'll move on to item number 2.
Good evening. The item before you is a non-compliant parking lot located at 1919 10th Avenue South. It is a small parcel right here, and the Franklin Street Bakery is currently using that parking lot. Franklin, the bakery is right here across the alley. There was previously a duplex located there that was demolished at the end of 2013, and some point after that, the parking lot was established there without obtaining approvals. And what the applicant is proposing to do is to allow, let me show you a picture here. There's a photos that was included, so it's currently there. They are asking, or going to be requesting, that the lot be approved as a temporary unimproved parking lot while they put together some plans to expand the bakery at a later date. So they will be, at a later date, going to the city council for an interim use permit where the council can look at granting some exceptions based on the short nature of the intended use of this parking lot. But in order for them to pursue that interim use permit, the property needs to be properly zoned, and it needs to be allowed as a conditional use permit in order for that interim use permit to be considered. So what they're proposing or requesting right now is to rezone the property, which is currently zoned R2B, and add the transitional parking overlay district to it. The site is located or designated for urban neighborhood as the future land use by the comprehensive plan. Franklin Avenue is designated as a commercial corridor, and as you noted earlier, the bakery is off of Franklin, so that is directly on the commercial corridor, and it is a business that this parking lot will be serving that business, and our comprehensive plan does support having that business located in that location. So we found that it was not solely in the interest of the property owner to allow this rezoning. Also that it is considered consistent with the comprehensive plan. Looking at the surrounding zoning and uses, there is a mix in this area. Generally, the commercial uses are, again, along Franklin Avenue on the commercial corridor, and then as you move off of the corridor, they become residential. Just looking at the history of the character of the area, that really hasn't changed in the past significantly anyway. So we did find that the rezoning would be compatible here, but it should be noted, and we noted this in the staff report, that this is a small site. Exceptions to allow a parking lot here are needed. And 2 items of note were just with the narrowness of it, it doesn't allow for a landscape buffer to be installed and for all the maneuvering to occur on site. So essentially for this parking lot to be approved, we're going to have to allow them to maneuver in the alley. So those are things that will have to be considered through the interim use permit when it goes to the council. But at this point, again, we do need a recommendation on the rezoning for them to get to the interim use permit point. And so just to sum up, we are recommending approval again of the rezoning. I can take questions, and I'll also note that you did receive some correspondence today. That should be in your packets.
Thank you for your report, Commissioners. Do you have any questions for staff? All right, seeing none, I'll open the public hearing and ask for the applicant to come up. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Don Gerberding with Master Properties, and we're at 201 West Broadway. Thank you, Commissioners. We're here tonight representing the Franklin Street Bakery, and their request is pretty simple in that The existing property was a condemned duplex, which the bakery acquired as part of a larger plan. They would like to expand their bakery at their present location, and so they're in the process of acquiring adjacent properties so that they can make that expansion happen. This is just a site plan as an aerial view. Let's see, I've forgotten how to zoom in on this. Here we go. No, that doesn't, that's just the brightness. I'm going to need some technical help here.
You're using that one.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, if the bakery is located on the corner of 10th and Franklin, they have a loading and a parking area to the west of the property. What we're talking about today is this parcel right here, which there's another 4-foot parcel between the proposed parking area and the alley that is owned by Franklin Street Bakery. When Franklin Street Bakery built the bakery, the alley was relocated so that it was vacated from Franklin to this point on their north property line and then rerouted out to 10th Avenue. So if we go to the site plan, one can see that this is the alley. This is that little 4-foot parcel which Franklin Street Bakery owns. The 1919 is the parcel which Franklin Street Bakery purchased. The request today is only for rezoning the property and not changing the underlying zoning, but the application to add a transitional parking overlay so that a parking lot is permitted as an interim use. The overarching goal here is for Franklin Street Bakery to use this for employee parking. They currently have, in 2002, the bakery was built. They have a retail establishment on the corner, which is a deli operation as well as selling bakery goods. The bakery is growing. They've grown to 90 to 100 employees. They run 3 shifts, 24 hours, Monday through Friday. Each of those shifts have somewhere between 25 to 30 employees. The current parking facility has 14 spaces for the retail, which is located north of the building, and they have 12 parking spots tucked in around their loading area for their employees. Well over 50% of the employees use public transportation. They also have bike racks on the premise. So they promote public transportation as best they could. The existing conditions are such that they need this parking because public transportation for the third shift is not as accessible as other times during the day. And it's a matter of safety for them to use off-site parking and expect their employees at shift changes to walk to other places in the neighborhood. It reduces congestion. The employees have been parking on the street in the neighborhood. The delivery trucks no longer need to wait in the street because of the able to use the alley and the maneuvering area to the south, as well as now being able to use that drive aisle where the cars aren't parked for maneuvering. It makes for better delivery maneuvering. And the intent is that they can now park their needs better. During the process for the rezoning, as the applicant, we did receive signatures, all the necessary and required signatures from the neighborhood when we proposed the rezoning. Are there any other questions?
Commissioners, do you have any? Commissioner Kranzer?
A few questions. Are you able to share what the future plans are for Franklin Street Bakery?
I'm sorry.
Share the future plans?
Yes, they would like to expand their existing facility to the west to include the present loading and docking area, and then they would reconfigure the loading and docking to the north of the building so that, and that would be on the parcels that they are currently acquiring.
Okay, so potentially moving the alley again.
Yes, yes.
And this isn't really an issue for this body, but how long of an interim user do you think Franklin would be requesting?
We're anticipating 3 years.
3 years, okay. And I noticed on the plans, there's no real landscaping proposed. Is there a reason a little bit of landscaping couldn't be installed for a few years to help buffer some of the impacts from the parking lot?
There is no landscaping proposed now. There will be installed a wooden fence to shield the parking. There is an existing wooden fence, as you'll see on the plan, for a portion of the distance. It'll be continued to the front, and then it'll drop to a 4-foot fence so that it'll be completely shielded from the parking area to the properties to the north. The reason behind not promoting a landscaping plan now is that the neighbor directly to the west is the Red and White Taxi facility, and this is an improvement. And also any improvements in cost are just temporary. And so we were trying not to spend the money needlessly because they'd be removed.
Sure. I mean, there's some very low cost landscape elements, but I wanted to make a clarification question. The 4-foot high wood fence that I see on the plan, does that turn and run parallel to the sidewalk? Or is that proposed only to be running east-west, perpendicular to the
Only
sidewalk?
east-west, yes.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Bender?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there parking in the other area that looks like it's more like a loading zone? The sort of main parcel there that's already zoned I-1? Or I guess, is there any other surface parking on site?
On site. The parking on site, once again, is you can see along Franklin Avenue and down 10th Street for about 5 stalls. And then north of the building, right above the red identifier, is parking, which is retail for the bakery's deli. Oh, I misspoke. I'm sorry, 10th Avenue.
How many parking spaces is that total?
There's 14 north of the building, and there's about 12 along Franklin and 10th.
Okay.
Any other questions? I actually had some questions. Now, can you zoom in on your aerial again real quick? So just to follow up on Commissioner Kranzer, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying the bakery in the future will expand maybe to the west along Franklin?
Correct.
So then what would the use be for that parking lot, the interim one that we'd be rezoning today? What would that use be in 5 years, for example, if not still a parking lot? I'm kind of confused.
It will be incorporated into the expansion. The plans that we've looked at now show 2 options. one for both vehicles and deliveries to come off of 10th, and another would show deliveries off of 11th.
Yeah, do you have those plans available to look at at all? I'm just trying to envision if this is an interim parking. I don't see how it's changing from a parking to anything other than parking. So I'm trying to place how interim this really is, and if we should be wondering about site plans and landscaping and those kinds of buffers. So they don't foresee how a building could expand to that spot at this moment.
The expansion for one option for expansion would be loading docks in that area. And
Crossing over the alley or changing, I mean,
we'd have to change the configuration of the alley. As the bakery purchases additional lots, it gives them the opportunity to put the alley further north. So the interim use is really an interim parking use. It's too early to tell whether or not we're going to be able, the client's going to be able to not use that area for singularly just parking. It could be deliveries and parking, or it could be access.
and then the plan you have shown is kind of basic, but can you tell, is that whole thing intended to be paved or class 5, or when I see all the blue, it looks like the whole lot gets covered with solid surface of some sort?
Right. It currently has recycled bituminous and concrete.
Okay, and would that be for even including the 14-foot setback still that way, or is there something else that's going to be proposed to?
The entire space now is recycled concrete.
Okay, but with what you're proposing, since what is used for now technically isn't allowed right now. So since you're going for this interim one, I'm just wondering if we were looking at this as a grassy lot you were wanting to get parking on, what would that 14-foot setback in the front be? Because I don't think we would allow a surface they could park on with the understanding. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think so. It's proposed to remain recycled bituminous and concrete.
Thank you.
You're
Are there
welcome.
any other questions, commissioners? All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to now continue the public hearing with comments from anyone else who wishes to speak. Just come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, just one at a time. Keep your comments to the specific application before us, just because we can only rule on those specific items. And then just come on up.
Hi, my name is Maureen Benson, and I live at 1814 10th Avenue South. I own a duplex there. This has always been residential area all along here. I'm wondering, you said that, it was said that this was okayed by the neighborhood. I never received anything on this. I'm a member of Ventura Village. I'm not sure that it was okayed by the Ventura Village Neighborhood Association.
You have to address this, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it ever was.
And that's a question we can ask staff if they've received any
Okay,
notification.
because I don't know that they would approve of something like this where it's changing. This was a home until, a duplex until last year. And then there was a permit issued to tear it down after Franklin Bakery bought it. It was torn down. I didn't hear anything about it coming down before it came down. So suddenly we're missing some residential living area there. And now it's being said that it's going to be turned into interim parking. Well, it doesn't look like it's interim parking. It looks like it's going to be either parking forever or else industrial or loading or something. It's not going to be residential anymore. And I don't think that this is really the best use for that street. It's not a busy street. If you've got trucks coming in and out of 10th Avenue there, it's already caused a lot of damage, just like to the boulevards there with the trucks coming in currently that they have fixed. There were big pockets of mud there for years where these trucks would back into Franklin Bakery until something was said and they had to fix up the boulevard there and have the trucks come a little bit different so that wouldn't be big puddles of mud. And I'm looking at this and saying, okay, if they're going to move down to 10th Avenue and that's all going to be bakery, then they're talking about even more traffic coming in off 10th Avenue. I don't think this should be zoned for parking without running it through everybody in the neighborhood. There are a lot of people that live there and own their homes there. And That's just my opinion. I guess that's about it.
Are there any questions for this?
Any questions for me?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else to speak? Name and address for the record.
Thank you, Maureen. Yeah, this is my name is Patrice Peterson, and I live at 1823 10th Avenue. And this is the first, my husband, Lynn Gray, and myself have heard about this when we received the letter dated February 6th about this expansion. And I would like to just read a prepared statement, and then I do have some questions and concern after that. I guess I was directing it to Janelle Widmeyer, the senior planner, because that's what
And we did get your letter, so if just,
Oh.
you know, we all received a copy of it up here too, so don't be worried if you are going to read that. You can just,
Okay, can I go ahead and read that?
well, you can read it if you want on the record. We don't have a very full docket. So.
Okay. I just want to read it for my husband, Lynn Gray, and I are long-term residents of 1823 10th Avenue. Lynn has been there since the mid-'70s. I've been there since 1992. Our home was built in 1899, and we are the third owners and residents. We have been committed to help build and support our neighborhood over decades and are happy to see it as a historically unique, multicultural, prosperous, inner-city residential neighborhood. We are both strongly opposed to rezoning 1919 10th Avenue in order to construct a parking facility. Please keep in mind the city is currently considering constructing a 20-foot barrier 2 blocks north adjacent to 18th Street and the highway. If this is the case, our home on these 2 blocks would then be sandwiched between a parking facility on one end of our street and a wall on the other, which would have a devastating negative effect on the living space of our neighborhood. We believe it is imperative to maintain what is currently residential and open to preserve the high quality of life we now enjoy for our families. Again, we strongly oppose to the rezoning of 1919 10th Avenue South. And I just want to say, this is sort of an informational hearing. I thought it was going to be more information. And I'm sorry I couldn't quite hear everything that was happening, but this whole idea that this is a temporary parking, it is raising red flags. They're not saying we want to rezone it for parking. It's a temporary parking. So they want to actually expand the bakery. So what the plan is not to keep this, is infringing upon our residential status, our residential neighborhood. I've heard temporary, interim, I've heard expansion. All of those things are, I think we're chipping away at our residency, we have 2 blocks of the most precious neighborhood, inner city neighborhood at this point, and we are just starting now to get students from the university. We're starting to get, families. We have children. We have ice cream trucks. We are light years away ahead of where we began when I moved in 1992. And I think it is highly beneficial to the city to preserve this neighborhood as a neighborhood. And if the Franklin Bakery is expanding to the point where they're going to move to the parking lot that's already allowed to them, aren't they saying they want to expand in that direction? And so it's really not for their night-term shift people. It's really a step towards expanding along Franklin and making this not a light industrial proposal, but more industrial. And no, we did not hear anything about it. We didn't sign anything, and I do think that it needs to at least put a pause on it so that more of our neighbors can be informed about this. We have also long-term neighbors right to the next of us. The Headlands, they're currently in Ecuador. I've been trying to email them back and forth since February 9th when I got this letter. It's dated February 6th, but we got it February 9th. So, we're trying our best to preserve what we have. And I respectfully submit these, and there's just really a lot of questions and concerns. I think more about the expansion, and again, they do really emphasize that this is a temporary thing, and so that's the red flag of what happens after, what is really in the works for us. And we've preserved this neighborhood since the mid-'70s. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? No, thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify? All right, name and address for the record, sir.
Lynn Gray, and I purchased my property at 1823 10th Avenue South in 1974. At that time, I was a professor at the University of Minnesota in the Regis Center for Art. And the reason I purchased that house was because it was in walking distance to the university. It was a nice little packaged neighborhood between 18th Street and Franklin. And I'm concerned that we should not allow the Franklin Bakery to expand any further than where they already are. They're mentioning about purchasing lots, which would eliminate the idea of a residential neighborhood. I really am not even for the rezoning of the so-called parking facility, because I understand that that could have further connotations of expansion. I also remember the house that was located at 1919 10th Avenue. That house was very livable, and I was surprised to see that it was sort of uprooted all of a sudden without any attention being given to the neighbors living around it. Then now I find out that it was purchased by the Franklin Bakery. That seems to be a rather nefarious action on their part, and I rather repute that.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this item? All right, if not, I'll close the public hearing on it. I did have a question for staff. Janelle, do you know if we have any correspondence from the Ventura Village neighborhood indicating that they received notice of this?
The neighborhood group did not send any correspondence to us. The applicant, we do have the email that they sent to them from back in October and November corresponding with them. So we know, and they also received the public hearing notice. So we know they're aware of it, but they have not chosen to submit anything to us. Oh, a letter or any correspondence from the neighborhood group has not been submitted to us.
Thank you. No.
Nope.
Anything to them or from them?
All right, we're gonna, just a second, I'm gonna make, commissioners, we have one item before us. Can I get a motion to open discussion on this item? Second? To discuss it? All right. All right, so the question was whether or not Ventura Village had sent a letter indicating their support for this. And the staff's response was that they received copies of an email that indicated that they had been made aware of it in October-ish, and then also they would have received notice, but that staff hasn't received any indication one way or the other as to whether or not they support or oppose this. No, we don't know. We haven't received any indication. Discussion's now open. Commissioners?
I do have another question for staff. Ms. Wimmer, I have some procedural concerns. And so my understanding of this is that this lot was purchased and then the demolition permit was issued. And then now it's being used basically illegally for parking without permission. But could you walk us through what should have happened? So for example, if a business wanted to expand their parking to the home next door, I mean, they would have to circulate a petition for a rezoning application, correct? To have it be industrial, they would have had to rezone it for I-1. Is that correct, or is there a different, or they could have done this interim route, but can you walk us through those proper procedures?
There could be several options on how to pursue this. Yeah, so if that parking lot had not been established without permission, they could have come in and proposed the same thing that they're proposing now to rezone and add the TP overlay and do the interim use permit. Or they could have, as you noted, rezone it to I-1 and go for a more permanent establishment where they would also need a conditional use permit. I guess another option would be, again, doing the transitional parking overlay district and also a conditional use permit, along with a number of variances because of the size of the site. But it's along with this application that we're looking at tonight, they did have to do the petition signatures. So for those property owners within 100 feet, they had to get a certain number of petitions for them to proceed to this point, just as they would with the industrial rezoning.
Commissioner Kranzer?
So had the applicant received the needed signatures from the adjacent property owners?
They have, yep. Otherwise, we would not be here. Yes.
All right, any other questions or discussion?
I have a question for staff.
Yes,
Are we allowed to add conditions to rezonings? I didn't think.
Commissioners, you are not able to add conditions to rezoning to either approve or deny recommendation of the City Council.
Commissioner Gagnon?
So are there any other examples? I know there's a number of bakeries on very high traffic, Hennepin, 50th, and they don't seem to have any parking at all, really. So why would Franklin, I know the staff and so forth, but it seems like we're opening restaurants and other things on these busy streets that are embedded in neighborhoods, and we're not doing parking for other establishments. So is it just because they're already parking there illegally that we're just like, whatever? Or, I mean, really?
We have a non-compliant parking lot, and it has to be addressed in some way. They are requesting that it be allowed to remain. In the way that they're pursuing that, the way they're pursuing getting permission now is through the transitional parking overlay district rezoning and the interim use permit. So yes, when we're looking at other properties, normally they would come in and ask us in advance of establishing a parking lot. That would be the normal way to do it. We didn't look at what the parking demands were for other bakeries throughout the city. We have, there are some bakeries that, this is a wholesale bakery, so it may be different in some ways than other bakeries.
Commissioner Bender?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we were to deny this application, if there was movement toward expanding the property in the future as part of this larger application, they could certainly come in for rezoning to I-1 as part of that proposal, and then this body and the City Council could consider all of those things together. Is there any reason they can't do that?
At this time, my understanding is that they don't own any other properties north of the bakery or this, the 1919 10th Avenue property. So yeah, it would have to be at a later date, and the parking lot that's currently there would have to be removed and basically put into a condition where cars are not parking there.
Commissioner Kranzer? Did you still have a question? No. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Bender.
Madam Chair, I'm going to move to deny this this application, and I can speak to why. I'm concerned here. The procedural piece is important to me because I share the concerns of the folks that came to testify that this is sort of a creeping kind of misuse, in my opinion, of our procedures we certainly could grant an interim parking use, which we do on occasion, but that's usually for larger redevelopment projects or places where we have some certainty about what's going to happen over the next handful of years. So I'm just concerned here because we do have a lot of commercial uses right up against residential. I don't want folks to feel like they can buy the house next door, tear it down, and start parking cars there, and then come to the city and ask for us to give them a temporary use permit. I just don't think that's an appropriate procedure, and it's concerning. We don't want people to tear down homes, in my opinion, and put surface parking lots in on commercial corridors in residential districts. So that's the motion.
Commissioner Bender has moved denial of it. Is there a second? Okay, any further discussion on this? Commissioner Kranzer?
I'm just wanted to, make the statement that we are trying to support small businesses and locally owned businesses, and maybe with a more concrete plan for the future, this might be something easier that we could look to granting as a temporary use if the future was more clear. So.
And in addition to Commissioner Kranzer and Commissioner Bender's statements, does anyone else have any thing they'd like to add that maybe addresses the findings? So what I heard is that it might not be in the public interest and is possibly solely for the interest of a single property owner, which is the second finding.
And just to reiterate, we can certainly work things that Councilmember Bender, Commissioner Bender, and Commissioner Kranzer said into the finding format. We need more than just this kind of a recitation of the negative of the finding itself. But Commissioner Bender in particular did articulate some of those things that we can work into findings. But just to, as Commissioner Lupke-Pierre said, if people have other findings to add, that would be helpful as well.
Any further discussion? All right, then I'm going to ask Lisa to call roll.
Bender. Gagnon. Kranzer. Lipke-Pierre. Oh, you're chairing. Never mind. Tucker. Says 4-0.
All right, then that application is denied. Yeah, it goes forward to the city council though for that was our recommendation to them. Seeing that we have no further items on today's agenda, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks everyone for coming out.